The Pokémon series has a lot of good music, with each game having the soundtracks be one of its strong suits. One of the most important tracks, however, is the theme you hear right at the beginning of the game. The hometown theme sets the tone for the entire game, being at the start when you first walk out of the door. Since there are so many good themes, I thought it would be good to rank them and see which one is the very best. So this is my list for the top Pokémon hometown themes. Now, in terms of ranking, I will mainly be going over how I think the themes sound, when taking into account the fact that they are the first tracks you hear in the game, but I will also be looking at how they fit the real life locations they are based on. Pokémon Sword and Shield will probably go down as the most controversial release ever for the series. With its brown, dirty graphics, its many bugs, and lack of Pokémon, the music was also not one of its strong suits, and the hometown theme area is no exception. The theme is honestly kinda depressing, with its drowsy tone and slow-ass theme that makes you fall asleep. Considering Galar is based in the UK, it makes sense, but it still kinda sucks. Also, the name Postwick kinda sucks and doesn't really have anything to do with the actual town. Overall, this theme is way too slow and boring to be the theme for the start of the game, which should be exciting and motivating. Back where it all began, Pallet Town was the first theme you ever hear in any Pokemon game, and it hasn't aged that well. Pokemon music on Game Boy was very experimental and some of it worked, but others really did not. The Game Boy sound chip was just not good enough for what they wanted to accomplish, so most of the tracks just sounded messy. Pallet Town was one of the better sounding tracks due to its simplicity, but it is still one of the weaker town themes overall. It just doesn't do much that the other themes have done way better. The simplicity and basic tones really affects it, which is why I'm not a big fan of the remake versions either. In fact, I think the Fire Red versions sound worse, but I'm not a big fan of that soundtrack on the whole anyway. Overall, this theme may have been the first, but it's certainly not the best. I'm very mixed on Twinleaf Town. On one hand, it has the same very depressing tone of Postwick, but on the other it has a catchy, emotional tune and uses the DS's sound chip to great effect. To start, the beginning is honestly not great, and if this was the whole song, it would probably be the weakest on the list. However, once we get past that, we then get this nice electric piano that gives off a city vibe. Besides the fact the theming doesn't exactly fit the area, I think it still works well and sounds warm and safe, which is what a starting area should be. Later on, extra pianos start appearing, making the track heavier as it goes into the ending, which brings it back to the original instrumental, winding it down. I think the ending is a lot better than the beginning, even though it uses similar sounds. It just fits a lot better and flows well into the start. Overall, I think this track has great sound, but also has parts that are just not great. As well as the fact the theming isn't 100% accurate. If this theme was used in a back alley in a city or something similar, it might have worked a lot better. Pokémon Black was the first game in the series that I played to completion, so this next theme has some nostalgic value. That said, this theme still has the depressing tone issue that Twinleaf has, though not nearly as bad. The depressing tone does, at least in some way, adds to the song, giving the idea of sadness leaving your hometown to go out into the world, with no way to know when you will return. Although you can very easily return whenever you want. This theme works much better in context within Black 2, where it is one of the last towns you visit in the postgame, making the journey feel like a complete circle. Apart from the depressing nature, the theme doesn't really feel like it fits the location. With Unova being in New York and Nuvema being meant to be Long Island, it doesn't really sound like music you would hear in that area. On the other hand, I find it impressive that they managed to use the DS sound chip this effectively, with many different instruments used in ways that bring out the emotion in the music. Now for the newest Pokemon game, and a theme that is more light-hearted and one that fits the area almost perfectly. Although there is something very familiar about it. Kabapoko technically has two themes, one for the inside and then one for the outside, but they are both very similar to the point where it's hard to tell the difference. The start of the theme is very vibrant with a lot of different sounds and sparkling effects. This to me gives the impression that the area is very tropical, with the bright sun influencing the music. The music then starts sounding like a marching band, which is why I think it fits in well with the area, due to it sounding very Spanish and Latino. After this is where it gets weird. I said earlier about it sounding familiar. Well, if you have played Mario Odyssey, and who hasn't, this track might sound similar to another track from that game. Yeah, this track uses very similar beats to the Peronza Plaza from the Luncheon Kingdom. I find it very weird because the style of music isn't the same. One is a more Spanish sounding, while the other is very Italian, but they both use the same kind of theme. Maybe I'm crazy, but I can't not hear it, and every time I play Pokemon I think of Mario Odyssey. Regardless of the alleged plagiarism, this song is still very good and fits the area well. Now back on the Game Boy again, but this time I think it manages to work on the system a lot better than before. Nuvema Town, despite being somewhat simplistic, is still very catchy and fun to listen to, and hasn't gotten old since I first played it. The main melody is this backing track that goes throughout the entire song, followed by a foreground melody that does the main theme. The main reason I like this one so much is that the foreground and background tracks flow so well together. Even though they are different, they still manage to hit some of the same notes, making them feel synchronized. The theme also knows its limits, with the song being very simple and not taking the Game Boy chip too far. Not to say it isn't ambitious for the Game Boy, it very much is, but it works a lot better than the other tracks by not going too overboard. Now for my favourite Pokemon titles, X and Y with Vaniville Town. Honestly though, I don't think this theme is that high up in my favourite X and Y tracks list. Yes, the track is good, but there are so many other X and Y tracks that are amazing it doesn't really say much. But that's a topic for another video. Anyway, for Vaniville Town, it gives off this calm, relaxing theme that no other town theme has done before. We have depressing, exciting, but never calming. It brings a unique change that I wouldn't mind seeing again. As for the theming, I think it does an excellent job of fitting Kalos. It's very subtle in how it uses French-sounding instruments. If you listen to it casually, it might not sound French, but on further inspection, it does a lot to provide that feeling and emotion you might get from the south of France, which is where Vaniville is meant to be located. The sound of the acoustic guitar towards the end just adds to the level of peace that you feel, and honestly, why even bother leaving the town when you could just stay here and be this relaxed? After X and Y, Game Freak wanted to go back and focus on the day and night cycle which was last seen in Diamond and Pearl. With that game, the music was mostly the same, with it just being slightly deeper in range. Sun and Moon, in comparison, takes it a whole step further, and one place that shows this perfectly is Iki Town. Now technically you don't start here since the player house is on Route 1 instead of being in any actual town, but since this is the first town you visit, and since the Route 1 theme is very similar to this theme, I think it counts. As for the theme though, the difference between the day and night is drastic, with the night theme being one of the best feeling tracks in all of Pokemon. For the day theme, it gives off a sort of festive tone with the impression that you're in a small village, with the sound being overall peaceful and not the loud heaviness that you would expect from a big festival. This fits the town well since it's a very secluded area with a small population. The day theme also gives off a tropical touristy vibe, with the background jingles sounding like something you would hear at a hotel or airport, and the piano adding to it with the extra effects which make it seem more busy without adding too much. For all of these reasons, I think it fits very well to its location, and it's probably the best theme in terms of how it fits in with the area. But the night theme is what really gives it this spot. As I said before, there isn't a Pokemon theme that feels this good anywhere else. The emotion and euphoric peace it gives off is unmatched. It keeps the same basic structure of the day theme, but slows it down and takes away many instruments that made the day theme feel festive, and instead uses serenic electronic background tracks that change the atmosphere to be something of a peaceful relax on the beach at night. The fact that they were able to change so little but yet so much is very impressive, and it really shows that less is more. I also recommend checking out the track with some added beach effects, which there are plenty of on YouTube. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire was arguably the first Pokemon games where they weren't limited by the sound chip of the system, and Littleroot Town definitely shows this right out of the game. The amount of emotion and nostalgia this track gives is something no other track can do, mostly due to the fact that this was one of the first Pokemon games I played, but I think for anyone this track will make you feel nostalgic, even though that doesn't really make any sense. It's just the way it's made, makes you feel all kinds of emotions. Right from the start it doesn't hold back, with the intro being full on right from the get-go. Then it gets even crazier with the addition of even more trumpets, which intensifies the theme even more. After that it quiets back down a bit, before going back up again with high-pitched trumpets for the finale. This theme really takes advantage of the GBA sound, and does what the Game Boy could never do, by having sound at this range and scale while also having it be able to not be a complete mess. The amount of variety this theme produces while also being able to be consistent in tone at the same time, plus the emotional impact it gives, makes it this high up on the list. But we still have one more game. For the best Pokemon hometown theme, I wanted something that not only fit the area, or sounded consistently good, or made you feel like you were really starting something amazing, but something that fit all those things and was the best at all of them. And I think I got it. Aspertia City is for me the best home theme. No other theme gives the sense of rush and excitement that this theme does. It starts out slow with a small build-up, and acoustic guitars plays in the background, while a single flute appears later on with some trumpets after. Then it blows up with a crazy combination of drums and piano playing alongside the existing instruments. After you get a flute solo-ish section before it goes back to the start. This theme is so perfectly well executed it's hard to put into words how it's done. Similar to Littleroot Town, it manages to come off as nostalgic even if you have never listened to the theme before. But unlike Littleroot, it also manages to motivate you and feel excited about starting the game. Nothing so far has beaten this theme, and I'm not sure anything ever will. The amount of perfection this theme gives makes it by far my top pick for the best hometown theme. So that was my list for the best Pokemon hometown themes. What did you think? Did you agree? Did you disagree with where I placed them? Tell me in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.